want you to be aware of and why that's something to be concerned about. New structures and formats for the school day and increased learning time. Now, you may or may not have heard this about, I think it was about 5 or 6 months ago. Arnie Duncan and President Obama came out and said, oh, well, we need to lengthen the school day. We need to have these kids in school more. And we need to maybe have school on Saturday. Guys, my wife and I work 60 to 70 hours a week. I love helping my students, but good Lord, when does it stop? At what point do I quit becoming, I mean, yeah, we get the summers off, I get that, but when I put 70 hours or 80 hours a week in my classroom during the school year, and that few months off in the summer can be spent making me a better teacher, it's not going to benefit the child. I mean, it's going to create more problems for us as teachers. And at some point, my wife and I want to have our own family. So if I got a student in my classroom for not just 8 hours, but now 10 hours in my building, then I'm there for 12 hours in the day. At what point do I get to experience my family? I don't want to sound like I'm whining, but that's just the reality. I mean, there are two sides of that coin. So I don't know what that means. The grant is awarded on all these variables, and there's different formats. Personally, I would be a proponent for changing the way we approach school, especially in the urban core. I think we could have longer days for 4 days of the week, maybe, or we could have a longer school year for 4 days a week and give teachers an extra day to work on classroom type stuff on Fridays. There's a lot that's being thrown at us. I mean, there's endless meetings anymore. Education is really changing internally. There's a lot of things that we have to devote our time to become better teachers, and in some ways it could benefit by having those kids go longer. Summer school a lot of times is a joke. We could possibly get rid of summer school and still use that time period to better benefit quality education. The other thing we see with students is there's a major drop-off when they go home in the summer and when they come back. There's a bit of a retraining period, and there is a bit of an issue with a lot of kids that just brain them. I mean, and so they're even further behind. Kids are rhythmic. They like to stay in a rhythm and get that constant input. And so I'm flexible there as a teacher to consider different ideas, but the way this has been billed by the Obama administration and Secretary Duncan, I'm not sure I'm comfortable with. So, partnerships with community-based organizations and nonprofits. Now that's the way it's worded in the federal summary. It does not say ACORN, but that is what ACORN is. It's a community-based nonprofit organization. I don't want any school district in America partnering with these clowns. We've seen what they've done. We don't want them involved in education. They don't have an input. Okay? I don't want them to have an input. They can, as a community member, go to their school board, but I don't want their mentality and some of the things we've seen publicly of being anywhere near education or my students in my classroom. Common standards, and I put in quotes or in parentheses there, national standards. And it goes as far to mention international standards. I've got a problem with it. Yeah. Now, in the state of, I'm a bit of a sovereignty guy. I love the Constitution. I believe that I'm a member of the state of Missouri first and the United States of America equally, but separate. Okay? That's my personal opinion. That's the way the Constitution is wrote, unless it's been changed recently.
Let's check.
I don't care what the international standards are. I don't care. And when it comes to history, or social sciences as we tend to term it, they have no say-so in that at all. Okay? Even at the national level, every state is different. The education that a student in California gets, of course we all know, is completely different than the education that student gets in the state of Missouri. Every state's got its own different culture. Every community has its own culture. Okay? And that is something that is up to the community to determine how they want to connect into those standards. We have state standards at the state of Missouri. They're called the grade level expectations. At the high school level, they're called the course level expectations. Okay? We got a great standard structure in the state of Missouri. We don't need to change it. We've got one of the best assessment programs in the country. We've been recognized as such. We're doing okay on this, so we don't need to get more involved in some of the standard push that just already messes up what we've got going. It's been consistent for some time now. I love this. This is a quote. Ensure the equitable distribution of teachers and principals by developing a plan informed by reviews of prior actions and data to ensure that students in high poverty and/or high minority schools, I put this in bold, have equitable access to highly effective teachers and principals and are not served by ineffective teachers and principals at higher rates than other students. What does that mean? Nobody knows. Okay? That's the big problem with Race to the Top. A few people raise their hands, you haven't even heard of it. A lot of people in education, administrators included, don't even know. They don't know what this means. The Commissioner of Education in Missouri has come at these school boards and said, here, sign this. This is called a Memorandum of Understanding. And if you sign this, you'll get your money if we win the grant. But if you don't, I'm sorry, you don't get your money.
Oh, that's what that is.
Okay, that's kind of like holding a loaded gun to somebody's head, especially in a cash-strapped economy like we are right now. We're facing budget shortfalls in both the districts my wife and I teach in. Okay? And so you put that before a school board whose job is to fund your public school. What is their option? Well, I better sign the memorandum of understanding, right? I mean, I don't want to be the one that doesn't get the money from my school, and then suddenly we're left in the dust down the road, and that's mine.
Yeah,
Okay?
I've heard of it.
So that's the way it works. What I mean was we don't understand this equitable distribution of teachers. What does that mean? Does that mean that
Redistribution.
Yeah, well, that's the way it's worded, and we've all seen, I mean, you know, Joe the plumber demonstrated that for us well. But that is the reality of the way these individuals think a lot of times. It's unfair that citizens in St. Louis and citizens in Kansas City don't get the same education that they do in the suburb. So we deserve that right to that education. I mean, that's the way that's worded to me. I can't take it any other way. I don't know what the legal definition is and what that means in our grants. But it sounds to me like, well, we can take a teacher here because you're highly qualified. And we'll put them here because they don't have you. And we'll spread it around a little bit, and that'll make education better. It doesn't work. Okay? It won't work. And I want to know more about it myself, what that means. Because I personally, I'm going to be honest with you, standing here, I'm talking to you as an expert on education, although I'm not really an expert. I just know, I mean, this is what I study. I haven't actually read the Missouri Grant, and you might notice why it's 299 pages. But I've read both executive summaries, and I've been doing a lot of reading on what this means for us. And that's the thing that continually is to show up in articles on this issue is we don't know what this means. We don't know what redistributing the teachers means. Okay, so that's just something. Would that affect you in Macon, Missouri? Probably not as much. Would it affect me in suburban Kansas City? Yeah, you bet.
Well, it's another form of busing.
Yeah, in some ways, I guess it's one way to look at it.
Don't you feel that that's what's going on in this country right now, is that they don't want you to know? That's
Oh,
why
yeah.
They don't know what's in the health bill.
Sure.
You know, they're just trying to stuff it.
Look at the quickness of how this came out of the stimulus. You know, oh, $4.35 billion for your schools. You better get signed up soon. We need you to sign this paper. I mean, yeah, that scares me. I'm not.
Sounds good, but it
Yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. And that's one of the things that worries me the most about this, the way it's worded. A lot of this stuff
Vague.
sounds very safe.
Well,
Sounds
vague,
good, too.
innocuous, you know, but it's not.
So let me move on here.
Howard Fiddle.
And then the last thing that's mentioned in the federal summary is what's called the intervention models. And it's worded that way, except I've never in my 2.5 years of teacher education, nor has my wife in her 2 years of undergraduate study, seen any evidence that backs up an intervention model, because it doesn't exist. Okay? It's something Arnie Duncan has created. And like I mentioned a little earlier when I started, he's done this in Chicago. He goes in and he fires a complete school district. That's happened. Literally fired every teacher in the building. And we go and put a bunch of new teachers in, and that's supposed to fix the problem, because after all, guys, the people to blame in education are the teachers, right? Because that's what we say in America today. It's always the teacher.
Or Bush.
Yeah. we don't ever think to blame maybe the parent of the student who comes to your class every day and says, nope, not going to do it. I don't care. C's okay, D's okay, just as long as you pass. You can't fail my student. We don't fail kids. There's no failure in America anymore, right? And that's been the whole foundation of the last couple of years anyways. Is whether you're big or small, you can't fail. That's too hard on your self-esteem.
Can't read.